Be me. I was 18 years old at the time that this happened. I decided to go to the family cabin in the woods. It's winter break, and I'm planning a getaway. No media, just a cell phone with me for emergencies. This is the first time I really was on my own. So, school ends, and I load my truck and I'm off. It took me a while to get to the nearest town there, but it was worth it, as I met up with an old family friend. My destination was maintained by a nice guy from a local town who did this as a line of work. I paid him a visit to send regards from my family, and he was impressed I decided to go on my own the way I planned to do. His praise immediately turned to concern now, almost as if something was inevitable. Anon, I'm glad you decided to live with the land for a bit, but be careful. These woods have dangers in them. Heh, I responded. My father told me about the bears and the wolves. No, he responded. Something sinister. Sure, I responded. My dad told me all about the spooky stuff. My dad was a bit of a joker, almost malicious at times. Nothing was off limits to him, including sending his son off with stories one would only assume Hollywood could conjure up. I immediately assume they are in on it and end the conversation. It was great seeing you. Always a pleasure. Once again, thank you for your wonderful work. After about 30 minutes of just catching up, I decided it was best to hit the road. I had a bit of a way to go, and a storm was due to roll in. As I said my goodbyes, he just left me with some advice. Anon, please, I am not joking with these stories. Please be safe. The woods play tricks. I departed. After about an hour of driving the winding, scenic, endless roads, I arrived at the old family cabin. It was truly breathtaking. An untouched piece of earth, crafted from the things you could only see in the best of pastoral artwork. Only I was that little character in that painting. I was alone. The cabin needed very little. It was maintained very well. Basically just minor sweeping was all I needed to do. A testament of our friend's hard work. I unpacked my truck and loaded all that was needed into the cabin, and I was set. It was pretty much near dark at this point, and I had been traveling for a long while, so I decided to get a fire going and watch the snow from the storm that had just started kicking. I threw some beans and hot dogs on the fire. I even managed to sneak a bottle of scotch, which wasn't like anything I thought it would be, but I pretended to like it for the time being. I lit my cigarette and enjoyed the views. Life was good. Soon enough, I found my belly full and my head nodding. It was time for sleep. I awoke to the ground covered in snow. It was great. It was this pure white snow, almost like baby powder. Where I'm from, it's usually yellow from dog piss. Hell, maybe even the occasional turd from some careless dog owner. I walked about the cabin to the rear, which faced what my father would call the outlook. The outlook was just a cliff, and if you were daring enough to look down, all you could see were pine trees to what seemed like the horizon. I decided to do what most would do and go exploring. I remember endless summer days of running around the woods and having adventures as a child, so I decided to do the same. It was challenging, trudging through the snow. I had underestimated the energy needed to do such a thing and quickly found myself both lost and tired. I decided it was time to head back. Luckily for me, I had lit a fire before leaving the cabin and had much warmth to look forward to. If only I could find my way back. I decided to follow my footsteps back, but quickly realized that some of them had been covered by the wind. It wasn't too difficult though. They would end. I would look around and find some more and follow those. This worked great, until I made this unexplainable discovery. I reached a point where it seemed that two paths had been taken. I saw my path and another one, which seemed to mimic my own path, but it diverted at a point. Was somebody following me? Or did they come after and go another way? My father always said there was not another cabin for miles. Could this be a lost hiker or a hunter? I decided to follow the unfamiliar path. Stupid, of course, but I was younger then. They were not kidding when they said you do not develop until 25 years old. After what seemed like hours of following these footsteps, they just vanished. I quickly backtracked and made it back to the cabin. I made my dinner and quickly fell asleep. The next few days were the same. I could not find the footsteps again. About a week had passed at this point, and we were expecting a massive storm. It was due to hit in a day or some, so I still had some time to screw around. I wanted to get the ultimate cabin storm experience, complete with raging fire, massive portion of food, a pie, and decent amounts of alcohol and cigarettes. It was going to be the grand finale of my trip. I set off for the day to get some firewood and pick some berries from a nearby patch. We had planted it when I was a kid, and I wanted to say what it had produced. It was bountiful, to say the least. Something about fresh, natural, untouched food. They tasted sweeter than anything I ever have. I head back to the cabin. As I am walking, I hear shit behind me. Not like the wind, and not that sound everyone talks about, like, something is behind us. Somebody, not something, was behind me, but where? They could be hiding behind anything, any tree, any bush, any rock. I call out to them. This is private land. Who are you? No answer. I call out. I am armed. Come out. Nothing. I hear a scurrying sound, and then silence again. I figure to myself, it was probably just an animal, and I head back to my place. As I was heading to my place, I could see our old family friend standing in front of the cabin. I still hear a faint sound behind me, but shrug it off as an animal at this point. I call out to him, "Hey, what brings you up here?" He tells me about the storm, and how I should come into town. It's going to be way too big for me to handle, and that they thrive in storms. Who is they? I ask. No time for stories. He scoffed at me and then proclaimed, "We have to board up now and get you out of here." Clearly he was worried about it still being daylight for the drive into town. I told him I am staying. He tried to convince me, but he was under a time restraint. He had a few homes to watch over, and he was in no mood for stories, and or me lagging around. He left me with a good luck and a satellite phone. I said no electronics. Remember, in the most pretentious 18-year-old manner that I could muster up. Truly something Holden would say. He told me to shut the fuck up and quit being a stupid kid, shoved the phone into my chest and said, "Don't be a fucking moron, kid. You're not shit out here. This whole finding your way shit is all bullshit. Call me if you need me." He got into his truck and sped off. I was honestly hurt. Like, levels of hurt I cannot explain. There I was, thinking I was this manly man, camping by myself, all alone. I was truly taken down a notch. I was in a shit mood for the rest of the night. I hastily made my dumberry pie. I cooked my stupid beans and whatever. I quickly scarfed that down to get drunk and cigarette myself into oblivion. The storm was big. Truly, he was not joking about that. I saw his concern with me after a few or 10 drinks and started to fade. I don't know how long I was out for, but all I heard when I woke was piercing wind howling, and then came the bang. Somebody, something, was at the cabin door. I stumbled to the nearest window and peeked out. It was my family friend. He was completely naked and looked almost blue. Holy shit, what happened, I think. I need to fucking help him. I bang on the window and yell out to him, "Hold on, I'm coming to get you." I rush to the door, tripping over my own drunken self. I swing the door open and tell him to get in. Snow is rushing in. I say it again, "Get in." Nothing. I tried to pull him inside. He's just ice cold. More than he should be. Not like I'm naked and out in the cold, like stone, like a cold I cannot even explain. I freak out at this point, because he is just waving his hands around and moving his mouth up and down, like he's having a conversation. His movements are furtive, not natural, and almost like it's mocking something. I'm not sure if it's because I was drunk, but they looked familiar. It looked like he was mocking himself from earlier. I rushed to the satellite phone, thinking maybe I will call his wife. I called the number I remembered as a kid, and thankfully I reached someone. "Feminon, Friendinon is here. He won't respond, he's acting weird." Before I could finish, I realized it was not his wife on the phone, but him. He calmly told me, "Walk to the door real slow, like nothing is going on, and just close it, real nice and slow, like everything is a-okay. Do you understand?" Yes, I respond. "Go do it," he says. I walk to the door, just like he said. I reach out to the door and close it, but this thing's movements give me the jumps. and I end up slamming it a bit. The door shakes for a bit, and I rush to the furthest place from it. It is literally shaking off of the hinges at this point. Then it stops, and I hear the loudest yell I have ever heard, animal-like, and a rip, and then silence. I rush to the phone to tell him what happened, and he says hold on for an hour and just hangs up. Next thing I remember is him and his wife waking me up on the floor in the cabin, and they are both dressed in big-ass Arctic-like parkas. They were able to drive up, using his old tracked vehicle thing. I drunkenly ask him, was that what you were talking about? He says yep. I ask what it was. He says he has no idea, so he calls it the thing. You know, like in the movie Kid, making sure to reference the one from the 80s and not that new CGI shit one. I passed out and woke up in the guest room of the house that they owned. My truck and all my shit was nicely packed in the back, and that was the last time I went up to that cabin. I live in Wyoming. I will not give out any more location info to protect myself. I take over my dad's old cabin. I refurnish it and go in the woods regularly. My whole family used to go camping together all of the time, but we stopped as we got older/busy. Not me. I would always go out to clear my head or just for some fun. I have been saving up a lot of my vacation time/money to have a few extra days off. I ask around. All my friends in my GF are busy. I am disappointed, but fuck it. We can do it some other time. I pack up my stuff and bring my German Shepherd, Baxter. It was around fall, so it was really beautiful out. Baxter is happy. I am happy. Life is good. I get to my cabin. I have not been for a few weeks, so I have to restock everything, but it's actually in pretty good shape. It should be. I spent a small fortune fixing it up. I spend the rest of the day setting up. By dark, I am cooking dinner and watching TV. The X-Files, the Flukeman episode. I want to get the Halloween/fall feel before going to bed. The next day, Baxter and I are out walking the trails. Recently, I have begun to walk over them and explore on my own. My dad always warned me not to stray too far, but that was when I was like 12 years old. I'm a big boy now. We walk on, and nothing is out of the ordinary. The birds are chirping, the sun is shining. I walk for a bit, and Baxter starts getting anxious, which is weird. He is usually fine in the woods. Another 5 minutes go by, and I find this old stone building I had never seen before. It's like really old. It could be early 1900s era. Some of it is still standing, but I can't figure out what it was. It's either an old stone house or some type of mill. It was all overgrown and the back was collapsed. I decided the absolute smartest thing to do would be to check it out. The inside smells like really strong cat piss. It also has some leaves and shit inside. Obvious signs of life are obvious. I am smart enough to know not to fuck around in someone else's living room. Me and Baxter get the hell up out of there. I unsling my M1 Garand. You can never be too safe. I keep telling myself I am just spooking myself. Every little crunch or snap off in the woods has me on high alert. I get back to the main trail when I hear a big as fuck snap, like someone snapping a limb off of a tree. Only something very large could do that. I crouch and ready my rifle. Baxter gets down with me. We sit for a few minutes. We figure we can wait it out. I am completely expecting a bear to come charging, but nothing. We get up and walk on. About 50 or so yards before the cabin, I hear it again. I don't crouch, but pull the ultimate dumb blonde in a horror movie. Is anybody out there? I am armed, so don't be fucking around. In my defense, I did not want to shoot some kids or a drunken hillbilly, but yeah, that was some Scooby-Doo tier shit, I know. Nothing calls out. Nobody replies. I double time it back to the cabin. Baxter is inside sleeping, but I am on the porch eating and watching. Nothing happens for the night, and for the next day. I laugh at myself. More than likely, it was just a bear. I go shooting, hiking, fishing, and enjoy myself. I come back from walking Baxter and see a blood smear on the side of my cabin. Somebody tossed a goddamn squirrel at my house. It looked like it had been manhandled before breaking its spine off of my shutters. I assume there was some axe murderer stalking me. I stopped going out on hikes and never leave my cabin. I don't want to run either. This place is mine, and I am not leaving early. The next day it rains. I stay inside and watch TV or read books. I realize I'm an idiot, as I only brought scary horror movies, /books, and murder mysteries to creep myself out. I walk by the windows. I always feel like I am being watched, but that is probably just nerves. I have a gun in every room. The next day, the rain clears. I get outside, because I forgot some folding lawn chairs, but whatever, they will dry. They are all broken, every single one of them. They were only like 15 to 20 yards away from my house. For a future reference, this is when shit starts hitting the fan. I am definitely being stalked. I've been hunting enough before to know that. And whatever it is, gave its last fuck a while ago, and I was late for the show. Which is bad. But I have got my cabin, plus my Jeep, plus a surplus of firearms. Thank you, based Wyoming, which is good. If I had known how crazy it was going to get, I honestly would not have stayed. We've had bears and shit before, and usually if you stand your ground and shoot at them, they leave you alone. I am sitting inside, reading Stephen King's It, because fuck it at this point, when I hear another thud. This one just to the right of my front door. I do not want to open the door. I do not want to open the door. I open the curtains. I see a bloody possum, still alive somewhat, twitching. Nope. I go upstairs to my granddad's war chest and pull out Samuel Goliath. His M14 he smuggled back. I load that sucker up, my .44 Ruger on my hip. I already said every room was armed, but that was just like a 9mm per room. I pack up everything else and back in my pack. I was thinking it was some maniac killer, and I did not want to have guns everywhere if he got inside. I have all my gun/supplies and bags in the living room in case I need to bug out. The next morning, the possum is still there, now dead. I toss it back into the woods and yell something to the likes of, "Now why don't you come out in the daylight, you fucking pansy?" Of course, nothing. Since I'm feeling brave, I walk the tree line. Whatever was out here broke some more of my shit. Lampposts that haven't worked in years, another chair, my fire pit. My fear is slowly being replaced with rage. I get Baxter and decide to test my balls in the water. I walk a little while into the trees. I'm a dumbass, I know. I'm officially the fat guy in the slasher movie that hears a scream and says, "I'll go check it out by myself," in the dark. We walk for a bit. The further we go, the lower Baxter gets, and the more he whines. I don't need Caesar Milan to tell me he's scared of being in someone's territory. In the distance, I make out a familiar shape, the stone building from before. We've gone too far this time, Scoob, old buddy, old pal. I see a tall grey chimney in the back that I didn't notice before. Shit on a dick, that chimney just moved. That's no chimney, and it's not Yogi Bear. I can't make out what it is, but it's pretty tall and slender and grey. I raise my M14 and yell, "Hey!" It sways slightly, then does this awkward forward leap and dash to the side into the bushes. I get possessed by Tom Cruise from Born on the 4th of July and fire off rounds like a madman. I think I hit it. I definitely heard a groan and a screech. I know I'm ripping off that Goatman story where he says it sounds like a cat talking, but that is the best way I can describe it. I don't know if I hit it. It could have been a battle cry for all I know. I fast walk back to the cabin. I don't want to run, especially if I am being hunted. I make it home in one piece. I pack everything. I am leaving tomorrow. I would tonight, but I am not driving around in the dark. Not even the Almo is worth this shit. At the very least, I am coming back with friends. I have everything. I am repacking to keep myself busy when I hear Baxter growl. Not a deep angry growl, like when the mailman comes to your house. A deep, back of his throat growl. I take out my .44 and walk slowly to the kitchen. Nothing, no monster, but Baxter is low and snarling to the window over the sink. There is condensation on it, but in one spot, like something was breathing on it. And just to make sure my therapy lessons are worthwhile, a handprint on the glass. I stare at it for a few seconds. I almost start laughing at how ridiculous this is. The print was too long to be a human. I take a pen and put it at the point where your finger meets your hand and see how long it is, like that long. I have my rifle over my shoulder, my revolver on my hip. I walk from room to room, double and triple checking to make sure I have everything. I have not seen this place empty since I inherited it. I'm really just keeping busy. If I sit for too long, I will go stir crazy, and I had since given up on ever sleeping again. I had Baxter on a leash to keep him close, but soon took it off. Poor guy would not leave my side. And I hear a thud again, then another and another. I check the front, dead raccoon, disemboweled. I check the back, a rock. He must have ran out of animals. I check the front, a deer leg. He found another animal. Then I remember we had these searchlights I had forgotten about that you could turn on from the den. We used to play volleyball well into the night when we were little, so my dad put them in. I juggled with the idea. I didn't know if it would scare him off or piss him off. Plus, I really did not want to get a good look at whatever it was. That is when I heard another thump, but this was different. It was going in a horizontal pattern along the outside of the walls. It was smacking the sides of my house. My legs were shaking, and I am surprised and proud I did not piss myself. My granddad used to tell me stories of Vietnam, how you know the enemies is there, but you grip your rifle to the point your knuckles hurt and you wait, but how waiting is the worst part of all. Fuck it, I turned on the floodlights and walked to each window, and that is when I finally saw this big, ugly bastard. So, I am going from room to room, and I am not seeing anything. I am getting more and more relieved, thinking I scared it off. I went to the window right under where the lights were, and I saw it. Well, actually, I saw the dead deer first, next to the tree line, all bloody and torn up to all hell. But I then see this thing. Now, I've read through a lot of creepypastas and X-Threads. I watched a lot of these hunting Bigfoot / Goatman shows, and they all have a lot of similarities. 7 to 8 feet tall, smell blood in the air, face like a gorilla, and built like a brick shithouse. And I can get why people who study them think of them as some missing link to evolution, because yeah, they do look like some long-lost gorilla relative. But whatever in the hell this thing was, did not. It was tall, not really tall, but I would say around 6'3", and slender, long arms. Those long fingers that will haunt my dreams for years to come. But its face was not like an ape. It was more like a baboon, long and droopy. When I googled pic related, it gave me chills to see it again. It wasn't colorful, but like a black reddish color that matched his fur, which was surprisingly sleek. Its eyes were yellow, probably the only relatable thing to the other cryptids, and the light surprised it. Like when you turn on a light and wake someone up. It then glanced at me, and we had a Clint Eastwood stare down before it snarled back its lips, showing the yellow baboon-like fangs. It screeched like a bat, and did that same side-to-side leap back into the woods. I closed the curtain, checked the lock, and curled up with my rifle until morning. When it came, I made one trip with all my friends and drove like a madman back to town. And that's pretty much it. My friends and I went back a month later. Some of the shutters were broken off, and there were some scratched, but aside from that it was fine. I've been camping since then, but only with a large group, no tents, and not that deep into the woods. I told my friends and family everything. They all more or less believe me. I am not the only one with a weird hunting story, though I'm sure mine is worthy of some sort of prize. I told my GF's dad, who is an avid hunter, and he just shrugged and matter-of-factly said, yeah, shit happens if you go out deep enough. And then in the most deadpan serious tone, those woods are not ours, not all of them at least. I've been looking into cryptozoology and into those goatmen threads, and I have yet to read about anything like what I saw. I don't know if I found some kind of inbred Bigfoot, or found some other kind of new thing that nobody knows about. I've been meaning to ask around to a lot of the local Native Americans. They of all people will probably have a legend of it. It still bothers me how we spent so much time out there as children and never saw anything quite like that. Like, it could have been watching us the whole time. I asked my dad, and he's just said the same thing as my GF's dad. I still have yet to sell the cabin. Probably never will, but whatever. For all that it's worth, it can be that thing's home now. When I was about 11 years old, My uncle took me and my little cousin on a hunting trip in the Shawnee Forest, which is where I grew up, considering my dad thought it necessary to build 20 miles away from any sign of civilization. It was deer season, and up until then, I never shot an animal before, so it was exciting as well as a bit scary. I got my boots on, and my uncle made sure we put on extra deer pass because he thought it was funny. We set out at about 3:30 in the morning, still dark out, and the trees making the forest pitch black did not help my active imagination at the time. We set up 2 deer stands, one for me. I bitched about having my cousin on my lap, and one for my uncle with my cousin sitting on his lap, barely holding the gun. My uncle had no faith in me and said it might be better if we set the deer stands a little bit farther apart than usual. He thought I would scare the deer away by talking, so I was in the stand, by myself in the darkest fuck woods. When 4:30 rolled around, I finally had enough of waiting. I was impatient, and climbed down off of the stand and started walking deeper into the forest. Now it was starting to light up. I did not worry too much about what I could find, considering I had a gun with me. I walked a good half mile until I came up on a clearing. All I saw was some tall grass and a pile of leaves in the center of the flat. I walked around the edge of the clearing, trying to see if there was any running streams I could follow, so I might find some shit to kill, when I noticed that it was a bit odd for a pile of leaves to be out here in the middle of nowhere. I took a closer look at the pile from afar, noticing that it seemed lopsided. I took a few steps toward the pile, and I heard a sound that I could only describe as someone gurgling snot. Then this massive fucking creature rose out of the pile, like fucking 8 or 9 feet tall, and looked like some fucking Neanderthal with hair covering about every place on his body except the face. Of course, when I saw this fucking colossal beast, I shit my pants and started freaking out. Breathing increased, heart rate 2,000 beats a second, eyes bigger than an animal. I fucking booked it and ran as fast as my legs could carry me all the way to my deer stand. I looked behind me and this fucker was following me. Even more reason to run faster than Usain Bolt. I got to my stand and climbed all the way to the top in about 3 seconds. I did not sit down, fuck that. I stood on the stand and looked down to find what was following me, but it was nowhere to be seen. It either gave up following me or was hiding. Either way, I was not going down to the forest floor without an AR on standby. I probably waited in the stand for a good hour. It was around 6 when my uncle showed up with my cousin and said it was time we started heading back. I, of course, told him what happened. Kirk, I saw a big hairy creature down there. That's why we're hunting deer and on. You're supposed to shoot them. But this wasn't a deer. It was like a Bigfoot. Lol, sure buddy. And that was it for my argument. And I came down, looking everywhere, trying to see if that fucking thing was waiting somewhere. We started to head back, and on the way my uncle said he had to take a leak, and he left his gun and my little cousin with me. It was about 5 minutes, way longer than it should have been when my uncle comes back. White as fucking snow. What's wrong, Kirk? Let's get out of here. I never gave it any more thought. Growing up, I figured I'd just imagine the whole thing, but I recently asked my uncle about the old times, and when I brought up the hunting trip, he got that same look on his face the morning of the hunt, when he came back from taking a piss. The rest of this is my uncle's account. So when I left Connor with you, I walked over the roadbed and down the hill to take a quick piss. When I found a place out of your guys' sight, I saw a deer down the hill. I was going to run up and get my gun from you so we don't show up empty-handed. But just as I was about to leave, I see this big-ass hairy man, like the one you described, run up to this thing and fucking tackle it. I was looking from behind a tree about 30 yards away, and this thing grabbed the poor deer by its antlers and thrashed its head until even I could hear the neck shatter. The thing started to drag it by its hind legs deeper into the forest, the same direction I found the thing. After that, I asked my uncle something else. He was clearly not enjoying telling me the story, so we had a few beers, and I started to drive home. I now live in Carbondale, which is a college town about 2 hours away from my uncle's house. I lived in the forest originally, about 15 minutes away from his house, so naturally, I stopped at the old house on my way home and decided to go and poke around in the outer part of the woods, just remembering the good times that I had climbing them when I was a kid. Then, I shit you not, I heard the most spine-chilling scream I have ever heard in my life. It sounded like a man, but it did not sound afraid. I got in my car and have never set foot in the woods again. The only audio I could find that sounded close to what I heard is this, sound clip 4.